Welcome back to another Telltale Books video, and another in my exploration of the great Harlan Ellison. Still working on his very early works. This video I want to talk about a story which is not science fiction, not fantastical at all. Harlan Ellison wanted to be more than just a science fiction writer, as much as he really loved the genre. He also hated the genre because he hated, you have to understand, and there's a certain amount of this that's still going on today, how publishers will pigeonhole an author into a genre. And so if that author has an idea for some other type of book, they can't get it published because the publishers all have them labeled as science fiction or fantasy or horror, and so it's very hard for them to break out of the genre ghetto. It's a marketing thing. You know, once an author has a name in a certain genre, the publishers know that they can sell that author if they write within that same genre all the time. If the author writes something that doesn't fit in that same genre, now they have to try and sell it to a whole new group of people who know nothing about that author, and they don't really want to do it. So it becomes very hard for an author to break out of that. To a certain extent, it's not the publisher's fault, really. It has to do with how people respond as consumers. That if we read one thing and we love it, we want more of that one thing. And if we read a bunch by a single author and we love all that by that author, we're looking for more of the same from that author, more of that same fix, really. And we don't react very well when the author doesn't give us that same thing, when the author gives us something different. And that's what Harlan Ellison was frustrated about. For most of his career, he wanted to break out of that. And he wanted to be taken seriously as a literate author. And much of what he wrote, even though a lot of it was published in genre magazines, much of what he wrote really does qualify as a more literate work than much of what we read in genre magazines. Definitely put pretty much anything Ellison wrote up against, well, Isaac Asimov or the early works of Clifford Simak, and it's like night and day. Ellison's work is so much better written. So it's kind of a shame that he had that battle, but he did a lot to fight it. He was a fighter. He never accepted just the way things are and that's what you do. So he fought against this, and one of the first things he did is round about 1956, he went and he spent 10 weeks, a little over 2 months, as a member of a Brooklyn street gang. He did this specifically for research for a whole series of stories, which were then collected together. Actually, I think there's more than one book of this type of story, but this was the first one, The Deadly Streets. This isn't the first edition. This is one that who did the Subterranean Press did a while ago as a more special edition, updated edition. It has a new introduction as well as the original introduction. In the original introduction, Ellison stated how he spent 10 weeks with a street gang, learning what these people were about, and learning that they weren't just evil thugs. They were mostly kids looking for a way out. They were living in bad situations, not much money, no opportunity for a good education, not really supportive families, and they were looking for something. And so they joined these street gangs because this gave them a family, this gave them something. Unfortunately, it also gave them an expectation of committing crimes and fighting anybody who was against the gang, meaning rival gangs. So Ellison went into this and he learned about it, and then he wrote about it from a realistic but sympathetic viewpoint. He wrote quite a few stories. Like I say, a bunch of them were collected into The Deadly Streets, which is where I'm reading them. And the first one to be published in July of 1956 was Johnny Slice's Stoolie. It was published in Guilty magazine. So the synopsis. You have a guy, first name of Cheech, I forget his last name. He's a member of a street gang. But there's certain other members of the street gang that kind of don't like him and would like to see him out. And usually the only way out of these gangs is death. Or prison. Get caught by the cops. Well, Cheech gets accused. A couple of the street gang members broke into, I believe it was a candy shop, and they got caught by the police. And the rumor was somebody ratted that the heist was going to go down to the police, so the police were ready for it. And of course, Ellison fictionalized everything. The stories are not exact reproductions of his own experiences. But Cheech gets the blame because there was a cop that was trying to question him, though Cheech insists that he refused to talk to the cop, refused to cooperate. Just the fact that he was seen, he gets blamed as being the snitch. And therein starts the story. I'm just a reader, and I've never been in a street gang, but the story impressed me as feeling real, as feeling like Ellison knew what he was writing about. The characters feel right, the dialects feel right, the story's written from Cheech's perspective, first person narrative, and so the style of the writing is the style of how Cheech talks, the Brooklyn kind of accent, without it being really heavy and difficult to read. Like you get a lot of British books that absolutely must accurately reproduce Cockney accents, which are, you might as well give me Old English. This you can understand, and it's well plotted, tightly written, moves along really well. This is an excellent story. Okay, Ellison knew how to write, and he did a great job writing this. I wouldn't call this a great story, but it's an impressive story and an enjoyable story. It's one that's completely readable today. It's understandable today. It's well written, and like I say, written with an accent, but written in a way where it's easy to read, and the pacing is set so that it moves along fast, and it's very engrossing. This is an excellent story. This is written by a really excellent writer, and that is, I know in his later work that he will do some really, really great work. This is starting to show it. This is no longer this is no longer like his earlier works where he's kind of feeling his way towards professionalism, having some terrific moments, but also being a little I don't want to say uncertain, but his earlier works just didn't come across as totally polished. This, to me, not an English major, I'm not a professor, but to me, this comes across as very polished work. And I definitely recommend it. Even though I'm not going to give this top tail status, I recommend Johnny Slice's Stoolie to anybody that wants to investigate more about Harlan Ellison and maybe step outside of genre fiction for a little bit. Find a copy of The Deadly Streets and read it. This is, get it away from, so it's not blocking the microphone. Now it's blocking the light. This is a really excellent book. This exact copy is no longer in print. I'm not sure if there is a currently in print Deadly Streets, but you can find paperbacks used. I bought this used off of an online seller. Just look it up, you'll find it. It's out there. It's not that difficult. So that's number. We're really moving along with Ellison. I'm further ahead than most of our authors. That was number 18. And I've got two for August of 1956. There are 3 stories. I don't know which one was first, but 2 of them are in The Deadly Streets. I'm gonna cover those first. So the next 2 stories, Rat Hater and Made in Heaven, are going to come from The Deadly Streets. And then I have back to a science fiction story, which I can only find it in this issue of Infinity, which is available as a PDF online, but I decided to buy the actual copy of the issue because it has a really cool Ed Emshwiller cover from, classic 1950s with your classic Beach Babe futuristic garb, but it also has stories by Randall Garrett, Richard Wilson, Damon Knight, Edward Wellen, and an Isaac Asimov story, which I'm sure I've read. I forget which story it is in here. Someday. I've read that one. And a short story by Robert Silverberg. So I decided to track down. I found a really, really beautiful. I mean, this is an almost new copy of the magazine. It's in great shape. Kudos to whoever took care of this for the last 70 years. I love it. So I'll be reading those Harlan Ellison stories and a lot of other fiction, genre and non-genre, coming up in actually very soon, all summer long and after. I hope you'll like us, subscribe to us, come on back for all these, and I hope you enjoy what I'm doing with this. I'll be in the next video.